All right, welcome to the Dartarian Show. I'm Alexander Dartarian,
And I'm Dominic Sykes.
and we're going to go into part two of the most infamous female killer of American history,
Right.
Lizzie Borden.
Yes. And I'm excited because we left off kind of like a
Yeah,
who do we think did it type deal, if it was Lizzie or whatever. And now we're going to go into her trial.
yep. Part one was about her early life and the murders and the investigation afterwards. So this episode's going to be the trial and what happened after the trial.
Yeah. I'm really curious to figure that out.
So, the trial of Lizzie Borden opened on June 5th, 1893, in the New Bedford courthouse before a panel of 3 judges. A high powered defense team, including Andrew Jennings and George Robinson.
Sorry to interrupt you, but why were there 3 judges?
I think this is how they did it back then. It was like a tribunal.
I know that a lot of the during the Salem witch trials.
This was like one of the
they had
biggest
more than one judge.
cases that had ever happened in America at
Right.
this time. So, I mean, this is before H.H. Holmes.
Right.
Yeah, so like it was huge. So they probably needed like maybe 3 judges for it. I have no idea why they had 3 judges.
Well, so it didn't go up to a federal level or anything?
No, pretty much back then.
I know they didn't have
yeah.
the FBI or anything like that, but I was wondering if maybe like Supreme Court,
Nope. Supreme Court's more for appeals than for
anything
else like that. Yeah.
government type stuff.
And George Robinson, one of her attorneys, was the former governor of Massachusetts.
Oh,
And he represented the defendant, while District Attorney Knowlton and Thomas Moody argued the case for the prosecution.
2-on-1.
Yeah, well, 2-on-2. Andrew
yeah,
Jennings was the
that's right.
thing. Before a jury of 12 men, Moody opened the state's case. When Moody carelessly threw Lizzie's blue frock on the prosecution table during his speech, it revealed the skulls of Andrew and Abby Borden. The sight of her parents' skulls, according to a newspaper account, caused Lizzie to fall into a faint that lasted for several minutes.
Well,
Sending a thrill of excitement through the awestruck spectators.
So they just took her dress that she was wearing, wrapped their skulls in it, and just slapped it down the table and were like, "Hey."
No, I think what he did was, because you know how the evidence is laid out on a table
Yeah, I know.
in the middle of the trial.
Yeah.
He pulled the dress up and slammed it down on the table, and without her permission or Emma's permission, they cut their heads off
Yeah,
and presented them.
that's messed up.
Like, Andrew and Abby have not been buried yet.
Yeah.
They're sitting,
Well, now headless.
headless, rotting.
That's messed up.
Like, they weren't put on ice. They were just left
Wow.
for days and months before they were interned into a freaking tomb.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? The prosecutor described Lizzie as the only person having both the motive and opportunity to commit the double murders, and then pulled from a bag the head of the axe that they claimed Lizzie used to kill her parents.
I don't think she was the only one with motive or opportunity. I think
Yeah.
the maid had motive and opportunity.
Yeah, I understand, because back then the Irish immigrants were treated poorly, but did you just call you Maggie because you didn't want to learn a new name? I don't think that's enough of motive to
Well,
kill.
maybe there was more to it. Maybe
Yeah.
she wasn't just not learning about their name. Maybe she was being mistreated or something.
I don't know. The first several witnesses for the state testified concerning events in and around the Borden home on the morning of August 4th, 1892. The most important of these witnesses is 26-year-old Bridget Sullivan, a.k.a. Maggie, testified that Lizzie was the only person she saw at the home at the time of her parents' murder, though she provided some consolation to the defense when she said that she had not witnessed, during her over 2 years of service to the family, signs of rumored ugly relationships between Lizzie and her stepmother.
So she's claiming that the animosity between the two wasn't there,
It wasn't
or she just didn't
it
see
wasn't
any of it,
bad
or-
enough to kill her.
Right.
This is quotes from her.
Okay.
Everything was pleasant, she said. Lizzie and her mother always spoke to each other.
Huh.
So, I mean, Lizzie and her stepmother, for example, Hannah H. Gifford, who made a garment for Lizzie a few months before the murders, described a conversation in which Lizzie called her stepmother a mean, good-for-nothing thing and said, "I don't have much to do with her. I stay in my room most of the time."
Mm. So conflicting.
Yeah, so they had two different spectrums, but you see that a lot in court.
Yeah.
Sullivan also testified that Andrew and Abby Borden experienced stomach pains on the day before the murder and told the jurors...
We talked about,
Yep. At the presumed time of Abby's death. Lizzie claimed she was washing outside windows. Sullivan testified that she opened the door for Andrew Borden after he returned home from his walk about the town, and then described hearing Lizzie's cry for help a few minutes after 11 o'clock. Several witnesses described seeing Andrew Borden at various points in town in the 2 hours before he returned home to his death.
Mm-hmm.
Household guest John Morse, age 60, described having breakfast in the Borden home on the morning of the murders and then leaving the house to perform chores.
Right.
So the only two people in this house besides the murder victims are Lizzie and Maggie.
Bridget.
Yeah, Bridget Maggie. Same person. The next set of witnesses described events and conversations after discovery of the murders. Dr. Seabury Bowen, the Borden family physician, summoned to the home by Lizzie in the late morning of August 4th, recounted Lizzie's story about looking for lead sinkers in the barn, and her contention that her father's troubles with his tenants probably had something to do with the murders. On cross-examination, Seabury agreed with the defense's suggestion that the morphine he prescribed Lizzie might account for some of the confusion and contradictory testimony.
Yeah.
She is still on morphine at this time.
Yeah. And refresh my memory again. Why was he giving her morphine in the first place? Was this after the...
This was after the discovery of the bodies.
Like, kind of like to calm her down or whatever? Yeah,
calm her down. Morphine was a calming. And she's like, he doubled the dose for the trial.
He definitely screwed that shit up.
So, Adeline Churchill, a Borden neighbor and another important witness, remembered Lizzie wearing a light blue dress with a diamond figure on it, but did not recall seeing any blood spots in it. John Fleet, the assistant marshal of Fall River, recalled his interview with Lizzie shortly after the murders. Lizzie corrected him, he testified, when he called Abby Borden her mother. "She was not my mother, sir," Lizzie replied. "She was my stepmother. My mother died when I was a child," which, again, is completely normal.
Yeah.
The most compelling testimony came again from Alice Russell. She was the young lady who stayed with Lizzie the night after the murder.
Yeah.
The one that the police officer witnessed them going in the basement.
And, the rags and everything like that.
Russell described a visit from Lizzie the night before the murders in which she announced that she would soon be going on vacation and felt that something is hanging over me. I cannot tell what it is. Then, according to Russell, after describing her parents' severe stomach sickness, which she attributed to bad baker's bread. It might have been the mutton they left out a few days.
Yeah, but then they don't know if that was true or not. The mutton.
Yeah,
because they had conflicting stories on that.
It was either swordfish or mutton.
Right.
But either one, if you leave out, will make you sick. Explaining her feeling, Lizzie told Russell that she wanted to go to sleep with one eye open half the time for fear somebody might burn the house down or hurt her father because he was so discourteous to people.
What?
Yeah, she was fearful. Her father was such a nasty person to other people.
Oh, okay.
That she feared that someone might burn down the house.
Right. So she's saying basically that lots of people would have been willing to kill at least him.
Oh, and the public agreed with her.
There you go.
The public agreed with her that her father... that lots of people had a thing. The only thing that the public did not agree with was the killing of Abby.
Yeah.
They didn't think that... Why would they kill her?
Yeah, and they killed her first.
Yeah. Unless they went to the... My thing, if it was a disgruntled tenant, I would assume that they would kill Abby because maybe they broke into the house to wait for Andrew, and she caught them because she got hit in the face.
Yeah, but why the bunch of whacks after that if it's just trying to shush somebody up to make sure that they're not, in
She
the
saw
way.
them.
Yeah, but why so many?
She saw the person.
Mm-hmm.
You hit, and then like with fear, and you're already angry, and you're just like, oh well, if I can't kill him, then I'll kill her.
Gotcha. Well,
And
maybe.
then he waited for a while because Bridget was coming in, and Matt and Lizzie was coming in, and he was like, oh shit, I gotta hide.
Yeah.
And then when he came in, when he came down the stairs
got
to leave,
extremely lucky that she wasn't seen the first time.
yeah, and saw Andrew laying on the couch. He's like, oh my god, this
Here's
is
my chance.
Yeah, I was like 2 for 1.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. I do think it is kind of strange that he was hated by a lot of people.
Yeah,
So
he was not a great person. Turning his questioning to the Sunday after the murders, District Attorney Moody asked Russell about the dress burning incident.
Mm-hmm.
Russell recounted that when she asked Lizzie what she was doing with the blue dress, she replied, "I'm going to burn this old thing up. It is covered with paint." On cross-examination, defense attorney George Robinson attempted through his questioning to suggest that a guilty person seeking to destroy incriminating evidence would be unlikely to do it in such an open fashion, as Lizzie allegedly did.
So basically, why
She
would
wouldn't
she
burn it in front of her friend.
Why did she?
Yeah. Russell also recounted a conversation with Lizzie about a note, which, according to Lizzie's account, she received from a messenger on the morning of the murders, summoning her to visit a sick friend. Lizzie used the note to explain why she thought her mother had left the home, and therefore didn't think to look for her body after discovering her father's.
Right.
Despite a thorough search of the Borden home, the alleged note was never found. But if you guys have listened to the first part, the doctor grabbed a ripped up note and threw it in the fire and said, "This is no." Yeah, it could have been that note. Russell said that she sarcastically suggested that her mother might have burned the note. Lizzie, according to Russell, replied, "Yes, she must have."
I mean, she would have to assume that because
yeah, you can't find it.
Yeah, she knows it's real. So
yeah, she got the note, but they couldn't find the messenger either. The little boy that brought it to her, they couldn't find that person either that she said.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, what about the person that sent the message? Were they able to track that down? The sick friend?
No, I don't think so.
Or did they even bother?
They probably didn't bother.
I would have tracked down, to verify that at least, I would have tracked down the person that sent the message if I couldn't find the note or the messenger.
Yeah.
Or the one carrying the message, I should say.
A newspaper account of the prosecution case likened it to a pigeon shooting match in which District Attorney Moody kept flinging up the birds and defying his antagonists to hit them, while the ex-governor, Defense Attorney Robinson, constantly fired and often, but by no means always, wounded or brought them down. They have weird sayings.
It's basically like saying they were a team.
Robinson's performance impressed reporters, with one writing that the ex-governor is certainly without equal in New York City as a cross-examiner. Robinson seemed ready to turn more or less to his own account nearly every government witness, according to one trial reporter.
Wow. So
he was basically the Johnny Cochran of back then. The defense made its case using, for the most part, the state's own witnesses. There has never been a trial so full of surprises, wrote one reporter covering the trial, with such marvelous contradictions given by witnesses called for a common purpose. The defense kept hammering at the contradictory testimony of key persecution witnesses. The defense also explored holes in the prosecution case, where the defense asked, "Is the handle that supposedly broke off from the axe head that the state hauled into the court and claimed was part of the murder weapon? Like, where is it?"
Yeah.
The state had no answer. The defense also exploited the government's own timeline, which allowed for 8 to 13 minutes between Andrew Borden's murder and Lizzie's call for Bridget Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
Robinson tried to suggest that the difficulty of washing blood off one's person's clothes,
taken a lot longer.
and a murder weapon of blood,
and
then hiding the murder weapon all within a short span of time would be impossible.
But for one person, definitely. There's no way. There's no way within the 11 or 12 minutes that she could have done something.
There's one working sink.
Yeah.
And it's down in the cellar,
Mm-hmm.
which, yeah, she could have hid the axe down the cellar because that's where they found it.
That's where they found it. Yeah.
But that all being said,
She still had not a
she
drop
would
of
have
blood on
had
her.
blood
Yeah.
all over her.
There's no way she could have cleaned it.
The decisive moment in the trial might have come when the 3-judge panel ruled that Lizzie Borden inquest testimony, full of contradictions and implausible claims, could not be submitted into evidence by the prosecution.
Right.
The judges concluded that Lizzie, at the time of the coroner's inquest, was for all practical purposes a prisoner charged with 2 murders, and that her testimony at the inquest, made in the absence of her attorney, was not voluntary.
Yeah. Which I think would be a good call.
Yeah. Lizzie should have been warned, the judges said, that she had the right under the 5th Amendment of the Constitution to remain silent. Like we were talking before,
the
Miranda
rights came about.
The judges rejected the state's argument that Lizzie was the only a suspect and not a prisoner at the time of the inquest, and that anyway her statement should be admitted because it was in the nature of a denial rather than a confession.
Mm-hmm.
So basically they were saying, well, she wasn't a prisoner, she was a suspect, and when we were questioning her, she didn't do it, like she was denying it, not confessing. The persecutions rested its case on June 14th after one final defeat. The state wanted to have druggist Eli Bentz recount for the jury his story of Lizzie Borden visiting a Fall River drugstore on the day before the murders and asking for 10 cents worth of prussic acid, a poison.
That was never verified, though, was it?
Yeah, well,
because we talked about that.
We talked about that last week, yeah. With the jurors excused, each leaving the courtroom with a palm leaf fan and ice water, the state tried to establish through medical experts, druggists, furriers, and chemists the qualities, properties, and uses of prussic acid. The judges, after listening to the state's foundational case, concluded that the evidence should be excluded.
Mm-hmm.
The defense presented only a handful of witnesses. Charles Guilford and Uriah Kirby reported seeing a strange man near the Borden house around 11 o'clock on the night before the murders.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Benjamin Hanfrey testified that he saw a pale-faced young man on the sidewalk near 92 2nd Street around 10:30 on August 4th. A plumber and a gas fitter testified that in the day or two before the murders, they had been in the Borden's barn loft casting doubt on police assertions that Lizzie's alibi was suspect because dust in the loft was undisturbed. So basically what that story is, she said that she was in the loft laying down reading after looking for fishing lures.
Yeah.
So, but the police were like, well, it was undisturbed. It had dust on it. Well, there was 2 people that couldn't see, like, there, because, like, this was a big event. So everybody was there looking in, kind of like with the Villisca axe murders we talked about 2 weeks ago. They were trying to see, so they climbed up in the loft to get a better picture, or a better view.
Yeah.
So the dust wouldn't have been there.
Right.
So that's where they're like, well, her alibi kind of does check out because the police lied, and it's not the first time they lied.
Right.
Emma Borden, the older sister of Lizzie, was the defense's most anticipated witness. Emma testified that Lizzie and her father enjoyed a good relationship. She told jurors that the gold ring found on the little finger of Andrew Borden's body was given to him 10 or 15 years ago by Lizzie, and he prized it highly.
Mm-hmm. So why would she kill him?
Yeah, she would kill her stepmom, but she wouldn't kill the dad.
Right.
That's basically what she was trying to say, I guess. Lizzie and her stepmother were cordial, even though she admitted to lingering resentment herself over the transfer by her father of his Fall River home, which we talked about before.
Yeah.
Which was in fact her grandmother's or their grandfather's house to Abby's sister.
Yeah.
But again, they Andrew fixed it by selling them that one house for $1.
Right.
So basically,
and they even sold it back to him later for a profit. Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Summing up the defense, A.V. Jennings argued, there is not one particle of direct evidence in this case from beginning to end against Lizzie A. Borden. This is not a spot of blood. There is not a spot of blood. There is not a weapon that they have connected with her in any way, shape, or fashion. Following Jennings, Governor Robinson, in his closing speech for the defense, insisted that the crime must have been committed by a maniac or a devil, not by someone with a respectable background of his client. He said the state had failed to meet its burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and it was physically impossible for Lizzie, without the help of a Confederate, to have committed the crime within the timeline suggested by the prosecution.
Right.
Robinson ridiculed the theory that Lizzie might have avoided getting blood spots on her clothes by killing her parents while stark naked, and argued that the murders might well have been committed by an intruder who passed out of the house undetected.
Right.
So there is another.
So it very well could have just been some random person, some random killer that walked into the house, killed the mom. He came home and killed him. But that would be weird, wouldn't it? Because how far exactly apart was it between Abby's death and his death?
2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah. So he would have been in the house with them
I guess
for
that
2 hours.
Yeah, I guess that's it. But and not.
Yeah, you can hide in the house.
I guess he could, yeah. And then
they didn't
just
find the body
left and
until
was never found.
30 minutes after Andrew was killed.
I wonder though if they didn't try as hard, the state, if they didn't try as hard as they did, depending on Lizzie, do you think they could have actually found if it wasn't her, the real killer?
Probably.
Like if they had knuckled down instead of trying to make the evidence fit her.
Yeah. They basically try to put all the evidence on her.
And I know that's their job. I mean, that's what prosecution's supposed to do, but
no, they're not. They're supposed to find the real killer.
They're supposed to, yeah.
The
but
cops,
damn well
the cops' job is to find the person, find the evidence that points to the right person. The prosecution's job is to take that evidence and try to
convict the person
with that evidence.
Yeah.
And if the evidence does not point to that person, they should not prosecute.
They shouldn't.
Yeah, but they do. One incident at the trial happened to be a doctor who studied blood samples, basically.
Right.
Kind of like a Dexter of his age, but without the killing.
Right.
But some killing.
Uh-oh.
So basically what he did was he studied the blood on the carpets.
Right.
That's how he knew Abby was killed 2 hours prior.
Right.
Because of the coagulated blood on the carpet. Andrew's blood was a lot fresher. So in trial, to prove his theory, he went into the other room and killed the dog.
What?
Yep. He slit one of the veins on the back leg to get it to bleed, and then slit its throat.
That is messed
on a
up.
carpet. His findings in court were inconclusive. So he just killed a dog for no
reason. That is so messed up.
At least he didn't do it right. Right. At least he didn't do it right where everybody was.
I know, but still, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah,
some people don't like. That's. He probably didn't think there was anything wrong with it either. He's like, whatever.
It was in this in science.
My
yeah.
point,
And he also stated that blood does not splatter but leak out. But as we know now, in every crime show you guys watch, when you hit someone with an axe or a hatchet, it was probably more likely a hatchet, several times to the point where their brain is like leaking out onto a carpet.
You will have the splatter from that, and plus the swinging the axe over and over
you
again, the blood would be splattering off of that.
That it would look like a slaughterhouse in there. After Hosea Nollington's able summing up of the prosecution's evidence, Judge Dooley charged the jury. According to one newspaper report, had the judge been the senior counsel for the defense making the closing plea in behalf of the defendant, he could not have more absolutely pointed out the folly of depending upon circumstantial evidence alone. It was the newspaper said, a remarkable charge, a plea for the innocent. Judge Dooley told jurors that they should take into account Lizzie's exceptional Christian character, which entitled her to every inference in her favor. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Whether Christians kill more people than the Crusades. The Crusades, the Inquisition, there's a lot of shit in history where Christians killed people.
Yeah.
The jury deliberated an hour and a half before returning with its verdict. The clerk asked the foreman of the jury, "What is your verdict?" "Not guilty," the foreman replied simply. Lizzie let out a yell, sank in her chair, rested her hands on the courtroom rail, put her face in her hands, and then let out a second cry of joy.
Well, that would be the appropriate reaction, I think.
Absolutely. Soon, Emma, her counsel, and the courtroom spectators were rushing to congratulate Lizzie. She hid her face in her sister's arms and announced, "Now take me home. I want to go to the old place and go at once tonight," because she's been in jail the entire time.
Yeah.
The aftermath.
Yeah, let's hear it, because that trial was crazy.
Yeah. Papers generally praised the jury's verdict. The New York Times, for example, editorialized, "It will be a certain relief to every right-minded man or woman who has followed the case to learn that the jury at New Bedford has not only acquitted Miss Lizzie Borden of the atrocious crime with which she was charged, but has done so with a promptness that was very significant."
Yeah.
The Times added that it considered the verdict a condemnation of the police authorities of Fall River, who secured the indictment and have conducted the trial. Not stopping there, the Times editorialist blasted the vanity of ignorant and untrained men charged with the detection of crime.
Yeah.
In smaller cities, the police in Fall River, the editorial concluded, are the usual inept and stupid and muddle-headed sort that such towns manage to get them for themselves.
Nice.
Good God.
Yeah, they let them have it, didn't they?
It is probably fair to say that, however likely it might that Lizzie did murder her parents, the prosecution failed to meet its burden to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
The state's case was rested largely on the argument that it was impossible for anyone else to have committed the crime. For the Borden jury, that and a few other suspicious actions of Lizzie's part, such as burning the dress, turned out not to be enough for a conviction.
Right.
It's circumstantial. You can't, no. Burning a dress, it could have been for what she said.
Anything, yeah.
Had the defendant been a male, some speculate the jury might have been more inclined to convict.
I think that's true.
Yeah, but one of the defenses,
especially back then.
Yeah, one of the defense's great advantages was the most persons in 1893 found it hard to believe that a woman of Lizzie's background could have pulled off such brutal killings, which is a mistake.
Well, if you take the that is a mistake, because people,
as we can see, Elizabeth Bathory killed hundreds.
Yeah.
Whether I believe that maybe she had her servants do it, the fact is she's still the monster that bathed in the blood.
Yeah.
So women can kill just as easily as men and just as brutally.
Yeah.
After the trial, Lizzie Borden returned to Fall River, where she and her sister Emma purchased an impressive home on the hill, which they called Maplecroft. Lizzie took an interest in theater, frequently attending plays and often associating with actors, artists, and bohemian types. Emma moved out of Maplecroft in 1905. Lizzie continued to live in Maplecroft until her death at 67 in 1927. She was buried by the graves of her parents in Falls River Oak Grove Cemetery. So basically,
to me it seems pretty cut and dry. I don't think she did it.
Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. A boy was playing in the backyard over by Lizzie's house. It was right behind Lizzie's house. And he found a hatchet. It looked like a brand new hatchet it was rusty, though. So it was a week after. So it was like a year after the murders. So...
What, the murder weapon?
Yeah, the murder weapon. They believe they may have found the murder weapon. This little boy did.
Oh.
So it was right behind the house. So
that still doesn't mean necessarily
That points more to an outside intruder than it does to Lizzie.
Mm-hmm.
So the hatchet that they found in the basement
was just a hatchet.
Yeah, it was just a hatchet. It didn't do anything. They broke. Yeah.
That's it.
So, but the axe, and they found flecks of new metal from the axe.
Mm-hmm.
They seen that it was missing some,
Right.
and they found those in Abby's head.
So they matched it.
They didn't match it. They just said they found it, and then when they looked at it, they don't know per se if that hatchet that little boy found behind in that backyard was the murder weapon, because it's probably been lost to time.
Yeah.
So Lizzie may have done it, may not have. I don't believe that she did it just for time frame references, not because she's a woman and would not have been able to do it.
No, I'm not talking about all the other stuff. The fact that
I believe 100% she could have done it.
She could have done it,
but the time frame doesn't allow her to do it.
Yeah, no, the time frame definitely is weird to me, and so is the fact that Lizzie seemed to have a pretty good relationship, like you said, with her father, and at least a cordial relationship with her stepmom. Even if you're cordial with somebody, unless you're psychotic, it's not enough to make you want to kill them. I mean, if you're cordial with somebody,
Yeah, like she was like, like she didn't call her mother. Because she wasn't her mother. She was her stepmom.
And obviously they didn't see eye to eye, but...
She didn't call her bitch or cunt. She just called her Mrs. Borden.
Yeah.
Which, in itself, really isn't that bad. I mean, she didn't... obviously, Abby didn't mind because she didn't correct Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Or...
I don't see it being... her having enough of a problem with her stepmom to kill her stepmom and then kill her dad, who she had a good relationship with. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So, but you know how, like, the trial ended, right? And everyone was happy that she was acquitted because,
Yeah,
like that.
Pretty much most of the newspapers, were
most of the
it.
public still believed that she killed them.
Yeah,
and got away with murder.
That's why I grew up thinking that Lizzie did it.
Yeah, and every newspaper following every year anniversary following the acquittal of Lizzie Borden, a new article came out saying that there was still a murderer in Fall River.
Yeah, because
that was her. She was like, they literally were like, she got away with murder.
Oh,
and
I
like
see.
Stuff. And they would have a new article every year,
and eventually
until she died.
That's messed up.
But she never moved out of Fall River.
No,
she bought a house and lived there her entire life.
Well, if you know you're innocent, I mean,
yeah. She was also speculated to be a lesbian because they think that she was in a relationship with an actress. And that's the reason why Emma moved out.
Oh, she didn't approve of it.
Maybe not approved with it, or she just wanted her to give her privacy.
Yeah.
Maybe in that case, maybe Lizzie finally slipped up and said, "Hey, Emma, I killed her parents," and then she was like,
"Okay, so let's look at it from that angle then. Say she is a lesbian, right?
Yep.
Say she had a relationship with the maid, and say that they worked together to
that's the modern
kill.
That's the modern sleuth. Theory that she had a relationship with Maggie and that her and Maggie killed the parents.
Again, I don't see other than love for maybe if she was in love with the maid to do it,
but after the trial, Bridget went away. Like she never had any interactions with.
I imagine
Lizzie
it would probably look pretty weird if they got together.
Well, I mean, she could have kept her as a maid. She could have kept her as a maid.
I guess, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That wasn't it, but
it's hard with cases like that because when there's not enough evidence,
I think
a lot of it is
blundered. I think that the police saw that Lizzie was doing some suspicious stuff and was like, okay, well, you're doing suspicious stuff, so obviously you're the murderer,
right?
And then stopped looking for the real murderer, which happens quite often.
Yeah.
Once the police were like,
they're
this
so
person,
sure,
they're so sure, and none of the evidence is pointing or circumstantial at best.
Yeah, they'll say they went with their gut instinct.
Yeah, I went with my instinct.
I went with my gut.
I went with my gut, and that I'm sorry, your
the grizzled old detective, and
gut feelings don't hold up in court.
No.
So you need evidence, hard evidence, and they didn't find a shred of it.
Right, and that's not going to say either that people don't get away with murder. On the other hand, so like say there's also situations where
I mean,
the person that there wasn't evidence against did do the crime,
Yeah.
And just got lucky. There wasn't enough evidence that they managed to pull up on them or whatever, and they walked away scot-free.
Yeah.
So that benefits both. The cops screwing up like that benefits both the innocent and the guilty.
Yeah, in the trial, right, when we were talking about last week with the bloody rags for her being on her menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
Basically, they asked her about it, right? And she said, yes, I had fleas at that time. Which, had fleas means menstrual cycle.
Right. It's just one of the terms at the time.
And that she explained the blood and the rags and the pail like that. Never questioned it. Never brought it up again.
Yeah,
that was
because they didn't want to talk about it.
They were like, okay,
taboo to talk about back then.
Well, it was this. The men were like,
it's not comfortable.
They're like, oh, I'm on my period. Oh, I don't want to hear it. Like that. But yeah, so I mean,
we live in a more civilized age now.
Granted, if they would have looked a little bit harder to that pail, maybe. I mean, I don't know. They could have been the way she cleaned off herself. They just left it.
So you think that if you go that route, you thinking maybe that was the cleanup from the murder?
If I had to guess, I think that
would be easy enough to check too, though.
Dr. Bowen,
by the way,
and well, they don't have any DNA of it. They don't have any fingerprints.
No, they wouldn't need that. I'm talking about to verify if she was on her cycle then.
Yeah, no, she was on her period.
There you go.
Yeah, that was 100%. Yeah,
I was gonna say, so that's very logical that could have been that.
But I have a theory. This is my theory, my personal theory. I think that Dr. Bowen and Lizzie were not romantically involved, but I think that she needed help killing them, right?
Yeah, if she did it, yeah.
Yeah, if she did. This is speculative if she did it. I think Dr. Bowen and her killed both parents, and I think Lizzie did it, right? But she was naked when she did it. Okay, so she killed them. And then Bowen came over and helped her clean her off because he was right across the street. And as soon as she yelled for help, he was the second person, I think, to get there.
Yeah.
So he probably went home and cleaned up too. But she could have cleaned herself up real quick downstairs with the rags, put them in there. And as soon as he came over, he told the cops, oh, Lizzie's on her period.
Oh, so he immediately jumped straight to that.
Yeah, so if you find blood in a pail in the basement,
that is weird.
Period. Yeah, like why would he say that?
Why would he? Yeah.
The defense also, or the prosecution also said she killed her parents because she was on her period. Because women are more likely to commit murder or violent crimes on their period, which is not true. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah,
women are less likely to.
That's crazy, man. That I didn't even think about that. One of the first things that the doctor said was, "Oh, Lizzie's on her period." Just Lizzie's on her period.
Oh, this note you don't need.
Yeah, right. Two of the weirdest parts of that was the doctor's actions.
Yeah. So the doctor
and the morphine.
Yeah, the morphine and the caffeine.
Yeah, the doctor was 100% sus.
Yeah. So that's my theory. I think Bowen, Dr. Seabury Bowen. That his first name's Seabury. That he just strikes me as a killer. I mean, I don't know. Anybody's out there.
Seabury's out there.
Yeah, Seabury's out there. Sorry, but yeah, it just sounds like a killer's name. But yeah, so that's my theory. I mean, what's your theory? Do you just think that Maggie and Lizzie?
Yeah, I like. If we were gonna go, I still think that she's honestly, looking at it logically, I really do think she is probably innocent. But if I go for if she did kill them, I think that the most likely would be that she had a relationship with Maggie, and that they both did it.
Yeah.
Because the doctor, I also don't see having any motive for doing it, other than to help Lizzie, who I don't think had a motive to do it in the first place. So the only one that would have motive at all, in my opinion, really would be the maid.
Well,
and that's just on the basis that.
My theory does come with a motive.
All right.
Okay. What if Andrew was molesting Lizzie? Like, from a young age, from when the mother died until now.
Right.
Right? Or till when she killed him. And the one person would know that would be the family physician.
Yeah.
So my thing is maybe Andrew got Lizzie pregnant, and Dr. Bowen had to do an abortion. Or something, or she had a miscarriage or something, and that was like, oh crap. And then the doctor's like, well, this is bullshit. I don't agree with this 100%. You know, like, he felt like he had to avenge Lizzie in some way because she grew up and they went to the church, and that's maybe why they went to the church alone. Maybe she told him, like, hey, my dad's doing this to me and I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, like, or it's causing me not to have a relationship, and that could be why she never married at all, and that could be a reason why Emma never married. It's because something like that traumatic that happened to them would ruin the rest of their lives.
And you're also basing this on the townspeople's
on the rumor,
opinion on the fact that
on the rumor.
He's a piece of shit, basically.
Yeah. Well, that, and it was a rumor going around that he was molesting her.
Right, which could have been made up because they didn't like him, but you never know.
Yeah, there was a lot of made up stuff, but and again, that is my complete theory. Like, that has no probably basis in evidence whatsoever. That's just my theory.
It would give the motive, but
yeah.
I don't know. She didn't act. No, that's not the right thing to say. No, I mean, she didn't seem to have a bad relationship with her father, outwardly. Yeah. Now, obviously, we know that behind closed doors is a different matter. But from appearances only, and what was presented to the court, as far as testimony from her sister and,
family, friends,
stuff like that, they seem to have a pretty decent relationship.
Yeah. But in your theory, if the maid wasn't on it, she would have lied during trial. So
that's true too.
Yeah. So, I mean, your theory is, but basically both of our theories are like Lizzie did it.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But
that's only, assuming that she did
that's
do it.
only if she did it.
That's how she did it, basically.
Yeah. Like,
because I still don't think that she did. I don't think that she did it. I don't think she would have had time, and if she did do it, she had to have help.
Yeah. 100%. That's why either way she had an accomplice, and the accomplice went free too.
Yeah.
So that was Lizzie Borden Part 2.
That was interesting. I knew who Lizzie Borden was, but I never really had a deep dive into it before, so it was interesting to go into that.
Absolutely, and you guys definitely need to go check out that bed and breakfast at Lizzie Borden's house, at the Borden murder house. So I've never been, but it looks great. I would love to go. 100%, dude.
Do you think it's haunted?
Like, I think they 100% say it's haunted.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in ghosts.
As a tourist thing, yeah.
Yeah, I would.
We were talking about how the Basilica house is probably... the
Villisca Axe murderer's house. That is technically haunted, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, anything where there's like something that really, really bad happens, you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar that it's gonna come up haunted. Yeah. But next week we're gonna start a series on Chernobyl. Yes, and I'm super excited about that. Dom, you're doing all of the research on that one, and I'm not gonna look into any of it.
Yeah.
I want to be surprised. And next in May, we're going to have a bonus episode on our Patreon. We started a Patreon. It will launch next week for you guys to help us out, and any kind of I guess donation.
Yeah.
Or if you guys subscribe to it, it will help us out greatly. There's different tiers and everything.
Cool stuff.
If you can't and you just want to listen, that's great too. We love that too.
Yeah, we're going to be putting out lots of content.
Lots and lots of content. But next week, that's when the Patreon will go into effect, and everything else. You need to find us, talk to us for any reason. You want to say who did it? Who do you think did it? That's what I want to know. Who's the audience think did it?
Yeah.
I did a poll about who killed Lizzie Borden, and a lot of people said no.
They didn't think that she did it?
Yeah, they didn't think that she did it. So I'm sure Lizzie Borden appreciates that now.
Yeah. A little too late.
Yeah. Right. Thank you guys. Follow us on that link below in the description, and we will see you next week for Chernobyl.